Ladies and gentlemen, very warm welcome from spring in Berlin. My name is Daniel Stecher, and I'm very glad that we have our 42nd Aviation Women panel from Ladies Beyond Flying. What a journey, which we started 8th of July 2020. And I'm very glad that I found somebody who also believes that the industry can learn from Formula One, because that was one of your posts, Arlette, where I thought, wow, she has exactly the right mindset to talk on Ladies Beyond Flying, because I'm totally convinced Formula One, racing, and airline industry, that at least the airline industry can learn from Formula One. We all know that the Dutch are the fastest in Formula One. So I'm a big fan of Dutchness in the airline industry. And today we have a fantastic presentation about inclusive aircraft design. And I agreed with Arlette that we give her around about 40 minutes for her presentation, where she gives the insights into the ecosystem and innovation. And if you have a question before the end of these 40 minutes, please post them in the chat feature here of MS Teams, because then we have reserved around about 20 minutes for the question answer after these initial 40 minutes. Stage is yours, Arlette, and ladies, enjoy.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you already for joining. My name is Arlette van der Veer. I'm part of KLM CityHopper, the regional airline of KLM. And I'm going to tell you about the innovation ecosystem of KLM, the whole KLM, and practical example of how such an ecosystem approach can be practically used. So I'll start sharing my screen. This is the presentation I've made for you today, and we will be talking about innovation at our lovely company. I've been working at KLM since 2017, and I had the privilege to have many jobs at many different departments. So on the left, you can see I was a shift leader at the platform. It was a very difficult summer of 2020. Maybe some of you can remember the queues we had in front of Schiphol. We had also a tough time on the platform, and I had a very nice job of being shift leader there on the platform. I also worked at KLM Cargo, where I implemented innovation. It was the volume scanner technology. When cargo is being shipped by us via trucks on pallets, we make real-time analysis of that by scanning the cargo. And then in the end, if you have a digital model, you can play Tetris with your cargo in the aircraft belly. I also worked at KLM Engineering and Maintenance, which is the last photo, where I was responsible for all 3D printing. And now today I am part of KLM CityHopper, the technical services department there, where I do project management and program management for strategy topics, the new KLC strategy, and technical subjects for our colleagues working on aircraft maintenance. We will be talking about the KLM innovation ecosystem, pictured here on the left, and then an example of a practical project we did in redefining the future of aircraft design. So we'll start with the innovation ecosystem, and I'll start with an anecdote. This is a little bit of a trial for me, because I really want to pass over the feeling one can have if you are innovating in the aeronautical industry. So please let me know at the end what you thought about the anecdote, if I should change it or not, but I really want to bring over this feeling. So let's give it a try. So imagine this is a cart, and this cart embodies our company, and this cart has to go to the right, because this is where innovation happens. In our company, you have people that are neutral about innovation. You have people who have ideas for innovation. However, you also have these things. These are not necessarily colleagues. These are all the things, these red puppets are all the things that hamper innovation in our industry. These things are legacy IT systems, mindset, culture, budgets, all the things you can think of, many, many more that hamper innovation in our company. And then if you look further to the green puppet, this green puppet embodies an innovator. And if you, most of the time, these are new employees, it has nothing to do with age, but most of the time, if you start a new job, you get a question saying, oh, maybe you should innovate this project, or maybe you should renew this program or this process. But they don't tell you that you also have to deal with all the people who are neutral or positive about innovation, but the more difficult ones that hamper innovation. So sometimes if you're working on an innovation project, it can feel really lonely, because on the one hand you think, but I got this assignment, this is my job, right? I should change things, but you really need help, support, and peers to overcome those hamperings of innovation, and especially come to implementation. Because if you also look at KLM, we're really good at thinking of new things or experimenting. But when it becomes really difficult, if a proof of concept experiment, for example, is a great success, and then you go to implementation, and then you realize you didn't involve IT architecture department from the start, or you realize you don't really have talked or listened to all the important stakeholders, and then implementation becomes really difficult. So to make it a little bit more difficult is that legacy IT systems or mindset or culture, whatever you can think of, they don't wear red sweaters to their work to show I'm against change or I don't want this to happen. Sometimes it's not even clear what the key thing is that hampers your innovation. So this picture shows that hampering innovation, the thing that hampers innovation can be anything. And then there is a solution, because if you would look at the innovation landscape at KLM about 10 years ago, then it really looked like this. I don't know if anyone's here who likes the mountains or who likes skiing or hiking. I do. And then if you envision a innovation project as one mountain and another project as another mountain, then it gets really difficult to go from one summit to another. It gets really difficult to get messages across. It gets really difficult to cooperate. So if you would look at it like this, it is pretty daunting to get to innovation implementation. But it helps if you start looking at it from above. So this is a height map. If you go hiking or skiing, you map out your route, and then you'll find places where you can find each other or can work together. And then it becomes less daunting, the item you want to implement. So this is basically the mindset behind the innovation ecosystem. Because we need a critical mass. Fortunately, you only need a small critical mass of those green and blue puppets to get towards implementation. You don't even need the whole population. You need to have a small group of first followers that you really have to be very mindful of, and they are very valuable. And this is what the innovation ecosystem embodies. They show the usual suspects for innovation in our company. So it is a network. Basically, they're people, the most important thing of our job, the people who do the work, that can actually help you accelerate innovation. And it works actually like a dream in our company. So that's the anecdote. I like to get more practical. I'm an aeronautical engineer from background, so we also like things to be very practical. So how does it look like, that ecosystem? this is the internal KLM innovation ecosystem. It doesn't matter if you can't read the names, it's fine. And I would like to point out one thing right away. This is quite an old version. It's January 2023. We're already 1 year ahead of that. But the funny thing is, also on this page, it depicts my old job. I was responsible for the innovation ecosystem of KLM in my previous job. And this is a cool thing I learned. This ecosystem does not have to be updated for it in order to work. Because what happens if someone in the company hears they're all like-minded, usual suspect for innovation throughout all our departments are depicted on the slide. So if someone gives me a call or sends me an email saying, hey Arlette, I heard you do great stuff on this topic or with 3D printing or volume scanning, and I pick up the phone, and my first reaction is, so cool that you reach out to me. But I got a new job. You need my successor. Her name is Alix. And you still end up where you need to be. So this is a key thing which I learned, is that if you get a network which adds value in itself, really get it going. So to start there, you need to give a lot of presentations. You need to talk to a lot of people. But if you get there, it starts working on its own. So how this system works is that if someone in any department of KLM is looking for a peer or advice on innovation methods, they come to the slide and they find or someone who already works in their environment or someone from a totally different environment. And the cool thing is that at KLM, we have really a lot of innovative people. If we would put all the names of those people on this slide, the slide would be black. It would be completely filled. There are many people. So the key access points within departments which are aware that they could get a call with a question saying, hey, I heard this or that, those people are on this slide. And because they know it's not about them, and because they know it's about a whole system of people, there's not a lot of resistance on who or who should be on this slide, because they trust that the person who gets the call will direct them to the right person. So at this moment, I work at KLM CityHopper, and I want to zoom in on that. There are two people in the KLM CityHopper ecosystem, Ernst and Jeroen. They're both colleagues of mine. And I'll show you the KLC innovation ecosystem in a bit. So if we zoom out further, you'll get the external ecosystem. And most of the time, if I speak to someone from procurement, they say, Arlette, this is not correct. We have many, many more external partners. This is true. We have many, many more. It's the same with all the innovative people. If you put all the suppliers on the slide would also be black. You would also not see anything. But the idea behind it is that the next big thing for innovation in our industry will not be a big topic like AI or like 3D printing or name one, but it will be a combination of small things together. And this is where it gets complex. And ecosystem visualization or ecosystem thinking can help us make sense of that. And there's one cool thing, because there is something corresponding with the internal and the external ecosystem, and those are the knowledge institutes. Because those are in the Netherlands, you have MBO, HBO, WO. We need all levels of knowledge institutes of students to help us renew our industry. We need all the knowledge we can get. So the cool thing is, students, they are interns in our company, so they are part of the internal ecosystem you see below here. But if they go back and finish their studies, they become of the external ecosystem. So these players are key in innovating in our industry, because they bring us new information, they inspire us, they go back, they become part of another company, and they learn and they bring value to the whole chain, the whole supply chain. So if you now look at the ecosystem of KLM CityHopper, the department, the part of KLM where I work now, do you remember that there were two names on that slide, right? There were two names on that little circle. Well, this is the ecosystem of KLM CityHopper itself. And you'll see, again, many more people. But the cool thing is that the people who are depicted on the full KLM ecosystem, they are connected with all the people on this slide. And we made an overview of who is working on which technology in our department. So you'll see that it helps you making sense of very complex topics. In highlight, the purpose of the KLM ecosystem is to inform, to connect, and to accelerate. And you'll see really that if you, for example, ask about one particular technology, for example, artificial intelligence implementation, you have multiple players in the whole ecosystem who work with their technology. And it really helps to develop something new which is already there. It helps to overcome barriers. It helps to make larger and combined business cases. And you can actually really accelerate innovation, because even if I'm an aeronautical engineer by heart, the challenges never lie in the technology. If you make a 3D model of a 3D print, you put it in an Ultimaker and it prints your model if you build it correctly. A computer will, if you build a macro correctly, will basically do what you want. But people don't really always work like that. So the key thing, if you, as an engineer, are able to combine those two things, focus on the person behind the job as a person, as people, then you'll see you really get speedy with your innovation. So the whole ecosystem, it's the internal network. It's a KLM innovation ecosystem SharePoint where I give a demo of, and it's the external network. And this is where, lots of things, lots of soft topics are being discussed. So a small demo, because I would like to show you the real thing. It looks like this. It's a simple SharePoint. Most of the time, the companies have SharePoint, and you can actually start making such an overview this day. So you'll see lots of information. It's innovation connected to the KLM strategy. You can see it here. So this is the KLM strategy, and it tells you how and which topics you can innovate on. Innovation methods, very interesting. Innovation ecosystem thinking, it's not an additional method. It's the glue in order that it doesn't mind, it's not a problem if you use any of those three, design thinking, agile, lean, or scrum, because every innovation project needs a different approach. So if design thinking is the way to go for you, go ahead. If you're more in IT, for example, maybe you can use more agile or lean. And the ecosystem gives information on all three methods. There's not one which is used the most, and there's not one which is the best. You can just see about the context when you use which one. And then what I really like, the innovation hubs of KLM. So you'll recognize this image, and on that image are blue icons. And those blue icons correspond with all the individual innovation hubs in our company. And they are a lot. The Sustainability Office, Blue Labs, it's about technical innovation. The team that's working on zero emission aviation. KLM X, it's transforming and innovating on the platforms. In the business, you've got in-flight services innovation team, the MRO lab, which is an innovation lab at KLM Engineering and Maintenance. You have the team at Cargo. And behind this are all examples of those teams. We'll go down to us. It's the KLM CityHopper Innovation Hub. And you'll see that these are the key people in that circle. So this is me, and then you'll have the ecosystem overview, which you just saw, and recordings of all the master classes we gave. So in that sense, all the teams are connected. And of course, external ecosystems are also there. All the contacts and topics we do with the Knowledge Institutes. KLM is investing in startups since 2011. You can find that under the Mainport Innovation Fund, and it has got a new name, and now it's Shift Invest. But you'll see that we invest in startups a lot, and of course our Arlette partners. And then our French colleagues also have such an overview. They do it by technology, and you can also find that here. This was the quick demo I wanted to give. I'll go back to the presentation. So now, how is this going to help us redefining the future of aircraft design? I'll try to do that in 13 minutes, then we'll have enough time for the questions. So with the Technical University of Delft, we did a big research into how and when can aircraft be more inclusively designed. So why is an ecosystem approach needed in a sense? It's the same thing as I mentioned before. The next big thing will be a combination of small things. And you'll see in the examples that follow that you'll need a whole ecosystem in order to change aircraft design. There are many, many, many players that end up making, designing, producing, manufacturing all the parts that go within an aircraft and all the parts that assemble and become an aircraft. So if you keep the mindset of an ecosystem in the back of your mind, then you'll see you need this to in order to make an impact. So let me just give some examples. What does non-inclusivity of aircraft mean? For example, this is KLM ground services, and this is an intercontinental flight, and this is a ground power unit that is being connected. And you'll see that the colleague who is connecting that needs to stand on a little stairs and has to reach above his head to connect the ground power unit to the aircraft. Maybe this is okay to do if you do it once a day, but you can imagine you don't do this once a day. So in designing an aircraft, these people, which are depicted on the photos, they have not been considered in design. So you'll see that they did not have a mindset of an ecosystem that uses aircraft in making the design. This is an example that could have really been different, because a connector, we don't know, but maybe it can be anywhere around the aircraft, be located anywhere. And a stairs was not needed, or someone who helps with the very heavy cable was not needed. It's simply not thought of it like that. In the middle, there's a photo of a colleague that needs to connect the catering truck and needs to deliver the catering trolleys to the colleagues in the cabin. You'll see that the middle part of the truck needs to go to the top and then needs to connect to the door. But you see that the colleague who's positioning that, he needs to hang out the window, needs to drive while looking at the door, and you see this is not ideal. So regardless of if you want to redesign a truck, or regardless if you want to redesign the aircraft, no one has thought about this situation, because it's not normal for a driver to hang out of his door to be able to position his truck. And this one, it comes close to heart, because I have a photo of that myself. I worked at KLM apron services at the CityHopper fleet, and every Embraer, if you believe it or not, is being loaded and unloaded by hand. So this in the front, it's a power stone, and it's an example which comes back later. This power stone needs to go into the cargo hold door, and then a colleague, a person, needs to climb inside and unload this luggage by hand. I don't have to explain that this has not been designed with a person in mind, because persons have to sit or lie on their backs, unload heavy baggages, and put them on the power stone. And this is because the people, and I'll say more this example, more in this presentation, the people who work the most, interact the most with an aircraft are the people with the less power and are not considered in design. So these are examples that you can and should incorporate the feelings and the jobs and the processes of these people when you're designing an aircraft. But there's a very logical reason why this is not being done. So this is a high over, let's not get too technical, but this is a high over example of how aircraft design works. It starts on the left, you have conceptual design, you have preliminary design, and you have detailed design. Then an aircraft goes into manufacture, then an aircraft goes into operation, and then in the end of life. So this is the circle, how it's been done since the 60s, and it has not been changed. So why is currently this process non-inclusive? If you look at the previous page, the aircraft design process is a waterfall method, during which actors are only considered in the detailed design stage, the last stage. So if we go back, you'll see here that actors are only considered in this stage. In that stage, many design choices have already been made. So we'll have conceptual design, we'll have aircraft performance requirements, and then detailed design, fluid design, and human factors. If you look at the cost incurred while making design, you'll see that if you want to change something in detailed design, it has very high costs. So if a platform worker says, I cannot connect this refueling pod, it's too heavy, his or her opinion to change something ends up in the detailed design, and then they just make just a cost-benefit analysis is made. Are we going to incorporate this feedback, or does it cost too much? Well, it costs too much. So the point is that you need to incorporate human factors more in conceptual design. Number 2, very important. Actors with the highest level of power and interest in influencing aircraft design primarily lack direct interaction with the aircraft. Let me rephrase that. Primarily never touch an aircraft daily in their jobs. A colleague of mine, a person who needs to load and unload aircraft, needs to touch and interact with the aircraft, well, 20, 30, you name it, times a day. This person does not have a high level of power. This person is not considered very important. This person has no impact on design whatsoever. If you make a power interest grid of that, then you'll see the people with the highest power are the people who never work with an aircraft a day in their lives. And you'll see that if you tell this to aerospace engineers, to engineers who design aircraft, you'll see that if you ask them, what's the last time you were in a hangar? What's the last time you touched a tool? Or what's the last time you handled an aircraft or changed tires? They'll look at you and say, that's a good point, but I've never done that. And I'm not here to point fingers. We fly with aircraft and we have designed them with the knowledge we had that day. But I think I get my point across. I think the people who have the highest interaction with aircraft every day should at least be involved in aircraft design. And I've also never, if I tell this to designers, I've never felt any resistance. They are like, of course, and they're open and they want to grow and they want to do that. So in the end, it's all about that this message comes across. So this is also why I give these keynotes. People need to start thinking like this. I have 4 minutes left. I'll try to wrap it up. So we put some numbers to that message, and it's pretty astounding. The aviation industry historically prioritized only meeting the needs of 29.4% of the actors that physically interact with the aircraft, which is cabin crew, pilots, maintenance, and passengers. These people are crucial. If you lack any of those, the aircraft will not fly. But it doesn't mean that they are the only ones that are crucial or interact with an aircraft. So it's a really easy calculation. Blue is people that are represented, and orange are the people who are not. And of course, this is a little bit black and white. But there are many, many examples, and I'll give some later on, that just the colleagues of catering services, cleaning services, they are just not represented. And I think that's an easy step forward which we could make. So there are, of course, inclusive features already. Let's not forget that. And let's not also forget that we are more than 100 years old. We are proud of our past. We are proud of our history. And this is the moment where we can really put that knowledge into use. So let's not forget that there are already inclusive features. We just want to expand that group. So what's my proposal? If you look, normally in aircraft operation, the daily operators are included or are using the aircraft. Then the project and what the students of the TU Delft have researched is that please incorporate daily operations operators in preliminary design of aircraft. It's pretty simple what we propose. Some practical examples. So these are the people we're talking about: apron services, catering services, cleaning, water and toilet, pushback and towing, and de-icing and defueling. So these are the people we're talking about, and these are examples. So what could you do to help make the life of cleaning services better? At this moment, there's a lot of porous materials in aircraft seats that are used in manufacturing. And if you would design a new aircraft, you could make it as simple as that the materials have a pore size with a maximum of 95 Newton meters. So these are just practical design requirements which you can use, which help make the life of the cleaning services better. Another example, life vests have to be checked before flight. Cleaning operators now need to crawl under the seats for inspections. And this is a project that's already being done by KLM CityHopper. You could reposition the life vests, or you can equip them with RFID sensors, which gives you the status of the life vest. Other examples, water and toilet services. If you re-water the aircraft, you need to open a panel while standing on the platform. I've tried this myself a lot of time, and you need high pressure to open such a panel. This panel is not designed with in mind that an employee, a person, needs to open it. It's just designed in the standards of this is an aircraft that needs to be closed. So as a proposed requirement, which is pretty easy, guarantee that water and toilet access panels can be unlocked with forces not exceeding 2 newtons. It's just a design requirement. And then most of the time, if I talk to engineers, they say, well, I can incorporate this. Yes, this is doable. Another example, the distance between the potable water system and the toilet drainage system poses health and sanitation problems. These 2 points are very closely located to each other. And if you look at health and safety requirements, it should be actually 11 meters. Maybe engineers say, yeah, I can do that. 11 meters, maybe it's possible. The GPU connection, it's connected with the photo I showed you. A requirement there could be lifting, limit overhead lifting to 50 newtons, particularly for wide body aircraft. If you incorporate this and designers are aware, then they might even rethink a GPU connection altogether, or maybe rethink the location. Cargo doors. An example here is, for example, the Boeing 737. The cargo doors fold inward. So you'll have to have, for loading manually and unloading, you have to position the power stow inside the cargo door. But in Embraer, it at least opens outwards. But 737, it opens inwards. So it even narrows, even makes the amount of space where a person can crawl through even smaller. So to ensure movability of apron personnel plus the power stow, at least design all cargo doors to move outwards. And it is already been done because Embraer and other aircraft, they move outdoors. In the end, it's all about trade-offs. It's very, very important in our industry. If you would design an aircraft that meets everybody's needs, it might never take flight. So trade-offs are super important. For example, a new fueling system, if you want to reduce the weight, the fueling pod, or if you want to make design improvements, it might increase more costs. It might not, but if you have new surface doors, it might need new regulations. If you have new interior designs, it might reduce your comfort or it might not. So the key thing is that in our industry, we really are constrained with weight and with the things we can do. But what I want to give, and I'll end my presentation with that, is that at least we could open up the group that's being considered in design, regardless of the trade-offs. And we all know that trade-offs will ever be part of our industry, and that's fine. But we can at least make it better than in the 60s. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Arlette. I think this was an amazing presentation. I loved it. And what I like very much, because you were mentioning several times the human factor, which is, I believe, also one of the most important topics in life. We learn everything in school, all these different geographies, languages, mathematics, history, but we are not learning about human beings. And then when we come out of school, maybe we went to university, we are surrounded by human beings. And then suddenly we get to know human beings. And so that's why I think what you are presenting is exactly one example where people do something in a good thought and maybe with good intentions, and they neglect a lot of human being behaviors and requirements. I liked your anecdote very much. By the way, I would recommend to read the book from Thomas Erickson, because then you would color these people in different colors. So it's primarily the greens who are hampering innovation, and the yellows have the ideas. And so that's why, but I like very much this anecdote. Questions from the audience, ladies? There's one. Jael, also from KLM. Please, come on stage.
Hi, yes. Hi, colleague. I am a service designer for data and technology within KLM, currently involved in actually a project to improve the platform issues that you described, which afterwards I would also like to get personally in touch about. But one design constraint that we have there is that they say we would like to implement something new, which would be suitable to for the Embraers as they are now. But we can't change the designs of the airplanes as they are now, and they're not being replaced anytime soon. So I totally agree with your story, but how do you tackle that at the moment if you don't get a completely new airplane?
Yeah, that is a key question. Because what you're talking about, of course, is how much retrofit is possible, and if there would be a design. Well, fortunately enough, the cooperation with Embraer is really good. One of the things that is being changed are the amount of nets in the cargo hold. So some of the nets, some airlines fly with only the first one and the last one, and we have to fly, for example, we receive them with all the nets, so we have to fly them with all the nets. But these are the things that we can change. And I think that opening up this conversation is the only way to influence aircraft design in the future. Basically, at this moment, you have one option, which is retrofit and cooperate with Embraer. If you can change the aircraft, what can you change on the ground, or what can you change for the colleague as a person, or how can we rebuild processes to optimize that? So you're completely right. We are very constrained in that. At this moment, the actions we do is also to open up the conversation.
That's a good point. That would be my next question, because we are running here this initiative in order to share best practice amongst female industry colleagues. I'm running another initiatives in order to share best practice in the field of airline operations and crew management. Is there something on the global level where airlines are exactly exchanging best practice, giving some insights how they try to tackle certain challenges from aircraft design? Or do you sense that KLM or the KLM group is currently the only airline group suffering from certain aspects, and other airlines and airport users are totally happy with the aircraft design?
If I can speak for Embraer and for KLM CityHopper, I think they involve and ask us, they are open to that, and they actively do that. If we look to Embraer, to Airbus and Boeing, we have to ask our colleagues at KLM. But the thing is that I've never experienced any resistance if you take the first step in doing so. Because if your way to go is that I would like to share knowledge, I would like to share our struggles, and we also propose things how you can incorporate that. It's not experienced as something that's intrusive or bad. So I would advise just to open up the conversation, and if you see room for improvement, relay it to the key business partners, or we do it with our fleet managers, and try to give practical tips where you would see improvement.
And do you have one example from a recent quick win? We have this example, an airline CEO was skipping the olives on the salad, and it was saving that amount of weight, and was $1 million US saving over the year. You have a similar case study whereby changing this and this from the aircraft design or from interior, the cost of, I don't know, cleaning, fueling, boarding, catering, could be improved because this was changed in a very quick period of time.
Yeah, it was also an ecosystem solution. So like I mentioned, we are doing 3D printing at KLM, engineering and maintenance. But the key thing to remember there is we do not have a production organization approval. That means we're not allowed to produce anything that ends up in an aircraft. We do, however, have a design organization approval, which makes us able to design tools. So there was an idea to redesign some part of a cabin part. We cannot design it. We can design it, but we cannot produce it. But for example, Materialize, it's a company in Leuven. They have a production organization approval for cabin parts. So then you'll find some player in your ecosystem who is allowed to safely and produce a part with an EASA Form 1. You design it, you get it back after they produce it, and you can implement it. And if we didn't have an ecosystem approach, we would never, we're gonna get in contact with those suppliers. So these are basically, if you put your challenges out there, you most of the time get practical help back.
There's a question from Sharina. Do you want to ask a question verbally, Sharina?
Sure, Daniel. Thank you. Thank you, Arlette. I didn't catch all of it. I joined midway, but I hopefully will go back and look at the presentation, the video, the recording. My question was because I saw the people who are underrepresented in terms of voices, and I thought, is it because the voices are not heard enough because they're not airline direct employees? And they are third-party ground handlers, so they're kind of once removed from the airline directly, and therefore it's not filtering up the chain. Do you think that is a point?
If I'm really honest, they are not involved because they're not considered as to be an important group.
Okay.
Working on the platform it's heavy work, it's dirty work, it's cleaning aircraft. It's not fancy, it's not cool. They are not considered because they don't own the money to influence design. They don't own the companies. They are considered. They're not respected for the work they do or the value they add in our supply chain. So that's the honest answer why they're not considered in design.
Okay. Okay.
And interestingly, we only realized that they are there, like we realize it at the moment in Germany, where the Lufthansa ground staff is on strike.
Yeah.
And all flights are cancelled because without fueling, without catering, without cleaning, also the fanciest cockpit cannot operate.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good example that we only realize the importance of certain stakeholders if they go on strike, unfortunately.
Yeah, and basically they have been neglected for decades, and now we're all of a sudden amazed that the whole supply chain comes to a standstill if we don't have enough technicians, if we don't have enough cleaners, if we don't have enough baggage handlers who do the dirty work for us. And then we're surprised that we get those long queues at Frankfurt or at Schiphol past summers. So it's the result of neglecting key people in our industry.
Okay, I can only hope that in future committees, the voices of ground handlers are also taken into consideration. Thank you, Arlette.
Yeah.
Any further questions from the audience, ladies?
You're on mute.
Maria, you're muted.
Good morning, everyone. Arlette, thank you for the interesting presentation and this commentary that you're making about the people who are actually doing the operation but are getting ignored is really appalling, because this speaks to some kind of a snobbery, if you like, intellectual snobbery within the circles and lack of responsibility, because we all know that at the end of the day, the operation happens with the help of all these people. Which leads me to my question, to what level do you see from your perspective AI starting to come into play and help the work of all these people? Because with AI functionalities, there is a huge potential for optimizing of the work of all these people, bringing more precision, bringing more consistency to the process. Obviously, these processes have to be standardized for the proper functioning of the operations, but AI can hugely enhance the consistency and really the control of all these operations, the precision. So in your community, do you see AI stepping in and starting to get into perfecting the roles of all these people and hopefully bringing a little bit more prestige or really, I guess, like respect for their work and what they do in the community and in the part of the operational processes?
Yeah, thank you. It's a very relevant and cool question because actually we have an internal Yeah, our own ChatGPT, for example, her name or the name is Talia. And we are already allowed behind the firewall of Air France KLM, so behind the safe environment, we can use and support, and AI supports us. But in this sense, I really have to mention that our industry is so immensely complex. For example, even if you already look at the platform, you have many different companies. Some people don't even understand really what's the difference between KLM and Schiphol, who's doing what, who should I call, and I think AI can support ecosystems, but mostly time also in making them more clear, or what's the right path to take. Another implementation is to optimize operations. So in the end, you might not even want to do the heavy lifting by a person at all. And of course, you need machine learning, AI, smart and sensitive software to do so. So I think it will definitely have an impact, but in the end, the most important thing is the people who are using AI output, or who are acting upon AI output, that are the most important, because a platform will never be without people. Our operation will never be about people, but I think the balance should be found in that.
Thank you. And by the way,
sorry, go ahead.
No, by the way, I also read, because I'm following a newsletter for travel AI, and they wrote recently about KLM using AI for reducing food waste. Yeah. So thank you for your leadership in that sense, because I've been with the travel industry for a long time, and I do enjoy to see AI coming and perfecting processes, because I know that from a business perspective, a airline can lose much more money than make. And it's because of the complexity of the operation, and it's because of so many variables that could go wrong, and as they do, and eventually they erode profits. So the fact that KLM is leading the way into at least one area is really something I was delighted to read about.
Well, thank you. It's nice that you read it.
Talking about AI and robotics, do you believe we will soon have some robots who take over some of the heavy lifting exercises and tasks on the apron? Because we will have this, or we have this already in some countries where elderly care is done by robots because you don't have enough employees to do the job. And connecting a GPU with an aircraft, I believe, is certainly an exercise and task and a robot could take over.
Yeah, some parts are already being robotized or being tested. For example, our colleagues at Schiphol, her name is Sarah Bellinger. She's project lead of the taxi bot. So that's pushback and towing with a electric taxi bot. But the key challenge is that the operation at an airport is so immensely complex that a lot of things have to be always the same in order for it easily to be robotized. And most of the time, they are not the same. So getting these parameters right, making AI analysis so that parameters do not have to be the same, will be a huge step forward. So many things are happening there, yeah. And there's a whole project team which is called Realize Autonomous Operations within KLM, who solely focus on this. If you want to learn more about that, her name is Linda Bos.
Maybe you can invite her to Ladies Beyond Flying, and maybe we can consider her for a presentation in October, November later this year.
Yeah, good idea.
Any further question from the audience?
I actually have a question. So actually, I'm a new bid trainee for autonomous operations. So I'm going to be working with that. But Linda is for E&M, and I'll be at cargo and ground services. But I was wondering, because I'm also looking into ChatGPT things, do you actually use Talia?
the whole time for so many things. Yeah. Most of the time I get questions, okay, look at this. And my first reaction is always to do interviews with my colleagues because they know best. But I'm not going to manually make analysis of those interviews. So in Thalia, I can now safely upload all my transcripts. Please make a 5 bullet point list. And then I have my SWOT analysis. So I use it the whole time. And I think if you are interested in that, the previous masterclass was about ChatGPT. You can find it on the ecosystem SharePoint, which you can access. And then you'll see all the things you can do with Thalia. And I think I gave that masterclass because most of the time with ChatGPT or Thalia, whatever you are using, some people are now but from the point that they're now afraid to ask, because everybody's talking about it, but there's just some people who are clueless still, which is logically because it's a big thing to comprehend. So we made a masterclass about that, like a crash. It was called Crash Course ChatGPT.
Okay, can I also find that somewhere on SharePoint or something?
Yeah. So if you can't find it, just email me. I'll give you links. Yeah.
Thank you. And actually, I had one more question. You showed the flying V, and you showed all the ground handlers that were included in doing new aircraft design. How many of those were actually implemented in, like, taken into account in a new design? Were they all possible? Most of them possible? And would it be possible that the flying V becomes true?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that was directly clear was that, for example, the Flying V, we built it in VR first, so you can visit it. If you go to Point of View, the VR team of Werner Soeteman is there. Go visit that someday. You can view the Flying V in VR. And then right away, all the ground handling personnel were, whoa, it's way too high on its legs. So there are many design requirements now by first making it in VR, by incorporating ground personnel, that they're actually the lead. It's really nice. The lead of the Flying V, the professor, he's writing a book about aircraft design. He's actually incorporating now our work in the new books of students who are learning about aircraft design, because he was also designing the Flying V on the same process that we have been designing aircraft for in the past 30, 40 years. So even he, as a professor, TU Delft professor, was like, oh dear, we have to incorporate those end users in preliminary design. So yes, it actually has impact. And most of the time people say, when is the Flying V gonna fly? If you ask me, that's not the main priority for me even. My main priority is that because the Flying V is so futuristic, we start having the conversation, and now because we had the conversation, Roelof Vos is updating his book on new aircraft design. So it has direct impact on our industry today, instead of the Flying V that will fly maybe in X years. We don't know if it's going to be hydrogen, if it's going to be battery, we don't know, but you can actually make an impact today.
Yeah,
Arlette,
thank you.
I came across your profile because you were saying aviation can learn from Formula One. So what can our industry learn from F1?
Well, if you look at Formula One, there are many, many things that are the same. So, for example, safety regulations. If you look at the halo, it's the thing which the drivers have in front of their cockpit. So if the car, I want to say aircraft now, if the car ends up on its top, then they don't fall on their head. So the cool thing is that they have corresponding safety regulations. They're really high standard. They have corresponding health and materials requirements that they use. They use a lot of carbon. We use a lot of carbon. We like high speed. They like high speed. So there are many, many things that are the same. But there's one thing that's not the same. And that's their innovation implementation speed. of course, they have a lot of more money. But we cannot always say, oh, just because you have more money, you cannot innovate. It's just too easy. So what we could learn from them is how do they design a new car every year with the same safety standards and with the same materials. What could we learn from Halo design? It has been, when it was requested, it has been designed really quickly and it has been really quickly implemented on all different cars, on all different teams, so all different airlines, all different aircraft. So they are using the same boundaries, so to say. Of course, not all the variables are the same, but they're using them more smartly. And this is something I would really want to find synergies on.
I think we share the same impression on two industries, and I have my own conclusion. What is the difference in Formula One? I will not share it here, but it's somehow described in this book from Thomas Eriksson, and so I believe that's the secret of success. Thank you very much. Fantastic 42nd Aviation Women panel, and we can already look forward to the 43rd one. And I saw Anushka was the entire time in the session because she is talking next month about redefining airline revenue management, and you are all invited to join her session. And if you know somebody who is smart, upbeat, enthusiastic, and positive, please kindly do the needful, as we say, invite her to our lovely group and help her to connect with bright minds like Arlette, Anushka, and all the other ladies beyond flying, because we want to evolve this industry. We want to question things which are done since decades, almost centuries, and we want to improve our industry together. So please stay all healthy and safe, and thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.